I can take you anywhere, I could take you home. I just wanna be there so you never feel alone. I know how it feels to be lost inside this world. Don't give up, no.
Hello dear viewers! Welcome to our channel. Good day! In today's video, we are going to discuss the Assure model. So let's watch the video.
Assure model is a guide in crafting an instructional flow that can guide the teacher in integrating appropriate technology and media into the instructional process. It means that Assure model will be the guide of the teachers for their effective instruction with the use of media or technology in executing the lesson or the presentation. Teachers prefer the Assure model because it is designed used for a few hours of instruction and for each individual student. This model does not require high complexity of delivered media, deep ID knowledge, or high revision of design. Assure model has also 6 steps, each represented by a letter in the acronym title. Assure acronym stands for these important components. A stands for Analyze Learners, S for State Objectives, S Select Methods, Media, Materials, U is for Utilize Media, Materials, R is for Require Learner Participation, and E for Evaluate and Revise. And this is the Assure model.
An Assure model is to analyze learners. To analyze the learners, you must examine the learner in detail. As part of analyzing your learners, you must identify your audience. It can be students, teachers, group members, an organization, a youth group, and many more. The audience can be analyzed in terms of their general characteristics, specific entry competencies, as well as learning styles. General characteristics consist of grade level, age, sex, mental, emotional, physical, or social problems, as well as socio-economic status. Characteristics of the learners depend in reading skills, ethnic or cultural subgroup, learners' apathy, social background. Specific entry competencies. At the beginning, you have to assume that the learners lack the knowledge and skills, but they possess the knowledge or skills needed to learn and understand from the lesson. It suggests that instructors must verify assumptions about entry competencies through informal means such as in-class questioning or interviews, as well as formal means like teacher-made tests. Through the entry tests, in both formal and informal, it helps to determine whether the students possess the prerequisites. Learning styles refers to a cluster of psychological traits that determine on how the individual perceives, interacts with, and responds emotionally to learning environment. Howard Gardner was dissatisfied with the concept of IQ and its unitary view of intelligence. He identified 7 aspects of intelligence, consist of verbal, logical, visual, musical, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, as well as intrapersonal.
Assure models. Step number 2. State standards and objective. This step requires the teacher to state the standards and learning objectives as specially as possible. When developing our learning objectives, be sure to begin with the curriculum and technology standards adopted by your district, as these are based around state and national student performance criteria. Well-stated objectives must include: first, the learners for whom the objectives is intended; second, the action to be demonstrated; third, the conditions under which the behavior or performance will be observed; and last, the degree in which the new knowledge or skill must be mastered. The National Education Technology Standards for Students, or NETSS, specially outlines expectations for student use of technology.
Select methods, media, and materials. It is important to choose methods and materials that will appropriately meet the stated objectives that you are teaching. This will require a lot of planning and preparation. Materials must be the source ahead of time and must be relevant and functional. Once you know your audience and have a clear idea of what they should get out the lesson, then it is time to select an appropriate method for the given learning task. Select available materials, modify existing materials, or design new materials to help accomplish this task. At this step, the instructor should connect to the audience to the objectives. To connect the two, the teacher must know the method to use. The selection process has two stages. Number 1, deciding on the appropriate method for the given learning task. First, it is hard to believe that there is one method that is superior to others, and teacher must know what learning styles that the students have to pursue their individual learning methods practice. Second, choosing an appropriate media format and selecting, modifying, or designing the specific materials within that format. Choosing a media format. Media format is a physical form in which message is incorporated and displayed. It includes flip arts, audio, slides, films, video, and computer multimedia. Each of these have a different strength and limitations in terms of types of messages that going to be displayed and recorded. Things to consider in media selection models. A. Instructional situation or setting. B. Learning variables. C. Some models also take into consideration the capability of format to give feedback to learner. Obtaining specific materials, select, modify, or design. Obtaining specific materials will generally involve one of three alternatives. 1. Selecting available materials. 2. Modifying existing materials. And 3. Designing new materials. Selecting available materials is the majority of instructional materials used by teachers and trainees are off-the-shelf or ready-made or other easy accessible sources. Next, survey of sources. Your first step might be to survey some of the published media reference guides to get the general idea of what is available, and the decision about to use instructional material depends on the several factors. Next, modifying available materials can be both challenging and creative because here you will find any suitable materials that is available. Next, designing new materials. Basic considerations must be taken into account when designing new materials. For example, objectives, audience, cost, technical expertise, equipment, facilities, and time.
And for the first step, utilize media and materials. In this step, you're going to develop your plan for implementing media and materials. Make sure you select and describe in detail how you are going to implement them in your lesson to help your learners meet the lesson objective. The media material and technology selected should be focused on carrying out the selected method. If you decide to use electronic equipment, be sure to use it before and then practice if you have to ensure the equipment is functioning properly. In the same regard, it is also important to practice the lesson itself before introducing it to the learner. Next, prepare the room, the necessary equipment and facilities. It may be obvious, but both of the learners and teacher should be prepared for the learning experience.
So the fifth step is the required learner participation, wherein student engagement is an important element. The learners have accountability of their own learning. Therefore, the teacher has to design sections of the lesson where the learner is guided to participate in and perform tasks. So the tasks with minimal or no supervision at all. So they can do the activity without the guide of the teacher. So they will understand and discover more. And the teacher will think the activity that can motivate and engage the knowledge of the students. Also, to describe how you're going to get each learner actively and individually involved in lesson. So you will think an activity like that. Students learn best when they are actively involved in the learner experience. And when you think of some activities, the students will actively participate, like raising their hand if they know the answer of the question, and the teacher will ask more information and ask some questions that are relatable to the topic.
The final step in Assure model is to evaluate and revise your blended learning strategy to ensure that it is as beneficial as possible. What is evaluation? Evaluation is the process of judging its effectiveness, its efficiency, and any other outcomes it may have. Evaluation should be congruent to the learning outcome provided in the lesson. Some learning outcomes can be sufficiently evaluated using a pen and paper test, but other learning outcomes can be assessed by using a rubric or having an aggregate write-up through the use of a portfolio assessment. All e-learning strategies are a work in progress because technology and learner needs are always evolving. Evaluation should be match the objective. Ultimately, this last stage is most important. You must evaluate the instructional process from the start to finish using the objectives you created in the beginning. It is helpful to reflect on your objections, instructional strategy, the instructional materials, and the assessment by evaluating the learner against the objectives. It can be determined if the lesson was effective and whether any step needs to be modified or re-examined.
That would be all. Thank you for listening. Hope you learned a lot in our presentation.